Hello everybody, I'm here with Dane. We are at Dane's place in Leilani, and probably none of you can see us quite yet, but we are here.
Yep.
And we're going to give you guys an update on the last month or so of data that we have on a volcano. The short and quick of it is not a whole lot's changed. We can show you guys, the data. We probably won't take a super long time, but
try and make this one pretty brief. Keep it concise.
And, we do know there are a lot of ideas kind of floating around, like big picture theories and all that.
Right.
We can get into that like in future updates. I think we're going to have a lot of time to talk about this. In the future.
Yeah, and the gist of a lot of the different debates right now is kind of around how long of nothing happening we're going to see, and usually ranges on few years to many years type of thing. It's pretty, there isn't a it's coming type of thing in serious debates right now. That's the one thing that's pretty much no indication of is immediate concern.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's a good way to put it, right? And no immediate concern, as far as a renewed eruption, whether it's here or even at the summit, there's no sign of it pretty much anywhere at this point.
Yeah.
What there is that people are kind of being affected by is a little bit of gas still, right? Not the same kinds of gas, but H2S, mostly hydrogen sulfide, the stinkier kind that we can smell a lot better even at lower concentrations. So
a little bit of that SO2 tint to it as well. Like there is still, out checking it, and you can still catch a whiff every once in a while. You're like,
right.
That's a mix. That's not one or the other. That's a mix right there.
Yeah,
but usually it's the further you are away and you're smelling something, you're talking H2S.
Right. So, but basically, while there is magma underground with a little bit of gas coming out, there's nothing fresh, and it's all kind of just congealing and cooling down there at this point.
Yeah.
Right? So.
The H2S is kind of indicating just how it is cooling, because it's coming from interactions with groundwater. It's taking place because it's so stagnant and so calm right now. And it will basically last until something changes.
Right. Yeah, so I think the yesterday's report says that the SO2 levels are below detection limits, but
since September,
not below detection limits of our noses.
Right.
So
there's still probably
there's still a little bit there, for sure. At the summit, it's probably even more so as far as the H2S, right? And there's been some talks. I got a shout out to Kīlauea, posted a picture, yesterday.
Yeah.
Big steam cloud kind of hanging over the caldera.
Yeah. Oh, that one was the caldera one. Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of hard to tell from down there,
It's coming from. A hard perspective to look at.
But from what I saw of people posting follow-ups, I think someone confirmed it was actually Halimamo.
Okay.
So I didn't see it myself. I was actually in Kīlauea, noticed that from there as well. And what I can say is that the mornings in Volcano have been very cold recently. Well, for us, right? You guys probably watching from other places that are much colder than here.
Yeah.
But for Hawaii where we live, when I wake up and it's like 56, 57 degrees, that's cold, right?
Right.
And that's, cold enough that combined with the lack of, any other moisture in the air, right, is allowing that steam cloud to kind of build and sit over that summit caldera.
Right. And what we know from deploying some thermometers around the cracks in Leilani and Highway 130 is that the temperature of the steam doesn't change very much. It fluctuates a few degrees here and there, and over a month you're going to look at some fluctuation, but it's basically a constant. What you see visually, though, can vary between hardly anything visible to complete whiteout conditions.
Right.
And that's all just due to variations in the weather, the temperature, the dew point, all the little nuances you can throw in there as well, but not variations in what's underground and what's there. That's the one thing that's been pretty much the same since the end. It's the temperatures, and looking back at observations and the records, steam seems to persist after these types of eruptions and stays pretty much as a constant.
Yeah, this is a wet place, so
it's a wet place, and the rains,
water down there to interact for a long time. So Should we look at maybe some data? Maybe
pull it up.
let's turn the camera around here and show you guys some of the data. Oh, I'm trying to touch the screen with my finger. It's not the iPad. So this is, what's going on here? My camera seems to have
Vertical one.
switched.
What is happening?
That is so strange. I was just horizontal.
Well, don't get seasick. It's okay. This is.
What is going on here? Sorry, guys. Like so.
What?
I'm having some technical issues here. So I don't know what to do about this, you guys, because this has never happened before. I'm holding my phone horizontal, but it's showing the image sideways vertically. Huh?
And then when you rotate it, it flips the wrong way. It still is what?
Let's see if I turn it back to us. I'm actually holding this horizontally by my camera. How does that even happen?
Now it's upside down.
What? I don't know. What do you think, Dan? Should we need to restart this thing? I mean, we might have to restart
this might have to restart this.
So, yeah, I'm sorry you guys. It looks good to you guys. Oh, that's really weird, huh? You guys.
It looks good to you guys?
So, yeah, Ryan says it looks.
It looks fine. I'm not. Okay, it's looking fine. Let's go.
Yeah, but the thing is, I can't see what the camera's pointing at in that case, right? You know.
Well, just pointing at that.
Okay, so
let's estimate it.
Let's see what we can do here. We'll trust that you guys can see this the right orientation.
All right.
So this is the map of the earthquakes for the last 7 days. There's nothing that unusual. We have our cluster. Oh, God, I can't.
Just don't look at the screen. Just gauge it.
I'm trying to move so I can. Okay, yeah, we'll just gauge it. Okay. So let's guess around there. Okay, so sorry guys, this is a whole new dynamic to have to point a phone at something that's not there to have you guys see the right.
Yeah, it's okay.
So, okay, all right. We got the Summit Earthquake Cluster, right? We have Mauna Loa, so we got the Mauna Loa earthquake still happening.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Do you have a touchscreen?
Yeah, no, I don't do it this way. All right, so
feels bad.
There's the Mauna Loa earthquakes.
Yep.
Summit earthquakes, that seems to be. Let's click on one of those and see what it puts up. 0.7K depth, kind of shallow. That one very shallow as well. So some kind of surface adjustments in Mauna Loa. And then actually we were talking today, Dan, that we do expect some adjustments in Mauna Loa to become more common and frequent, increasingly over maybe months to years time frame, as Mauna Loa is able to adjust to now the lack of the extra give that Kīlauea has, because it's a little extra wiggly now after what we had go down. So that in itself, is not alarming. There's not enough of them right there, but it is kind of a sign. I still think it's a signs of, kind of
right. And just to review, kind of just signs of, or refresher. We have the south flank, which is mobile all around here, all the faults. Right, this whole thing we think is mobile, and the GPS would support this, earthquake activity would support this. It's all moving south, right? And we believe that this is a loose flank at this point in time. It's still mobile. Mauna Loa is buttressed against, Kīlauea, about this area, right? So when Kīlauea relieved all this pressure, able to move south. Now we see interactions up top, translating further up. This adjustment between the two is kind of where I'm seeing this. I don't know where you're.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Overall, so I think we kind of maybe long term should we'll keep an eye on those Mauna Loa earthquakes. They probably will persist for a while. Whether they pop up every week, I don't know, but they seem to be happening more frequently.
Right. And for anybody reviewing the earthquake swarm, or the earthquake flurry, it was called, that occurred on Mauna Loa, it was more up in this area where these two little quakes are.
Right. Whereas
but these are kind of on the southwest rift.
The uppermost southwest rift.
Yeah, the upper southwest rift.
Yeah. So on Kīlauea, we still have the same patterns, right? We have our summit kind of adjustment earthquakes happening there. It doesn't seem from the tilt that there's a whole lot of net loss or gain, right? The magnitude isn't very big in any of those things, but there is some up and down movement.
Minor fluctuations between net zero, basically, is how I look at it.
So I mean, maybe some of those adjustments up or down could cause some little earthquakes, or maybe there's something happening.
And we've seen these. We've seen the DI cycles also, where it seems to not get back to. So it'll do a deflation event, and then it will do the inflation event. But the inflation event won't be able to reach where it started deflating from. So it doesn't inflate quite as much. It gets close.
Right.
But it doesn't seem to inflate more following one of these DI cycles. It seems to inflate the same amount back to where it was, or less.
So maybe let's just show you guys pull this up for you guys. Trust the camera is still pointing at something you can see over here.
There you go.
Yep. So there's a kind of an example of. Here's our scale. Our lines are 1 microradian, right? So these like little wiggles are not what we're looking at. We're looking at these bigger ones like this. Right?
You can see this would be the DI event, the deflation-inflation cycle. And this is what I was referring to, is the point that it takes off from. We get these daytime bumps in here, we're kind of ignoring those. But in general, it comes up to a little bit less than where it left from. And it either comes up to about the same height, where you negligible, or just a little less.
Yeah. So
that's been a few times now.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. I'm trying to, so we can look at the GPS and it's pointing to it. Kind of get closer to you that way. I'm kind of make sure I can get us both.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's actually like a net loss of gas.
Right.
Per se,
maybe.
Which it could be.
Yeah.
But when we look at the GPS here shortly, we're going to see that there is actually spreading across the distance of the caldera, which could be, in fact, movement of the south flank, kind of allowing that south caldera wall to kind of move south as well.
As that's happening.
And in that case, right, you actually could be changing some of the structure under there and actually dropping it down, or I mean, there could be some other more complicated dynamic happening.
And we're talking about really small changes.
Small
right
changes,
now.
yeah.
Very
Let's turn
small.
this around. So kind of small changes. As far as a net difference, right, from here to here is
1 microradian.
1 microradian, so that's spike, maybe half if we kind of take the average without that little. I'm not sure what that little bump is, right? Let me kind of, we haven't quite finished off the earthquake, so I'm going to kind of switch back to that. Just kind of say that maybe that's what's the dynamic happening in here. We still have all these south flank earthquakes happening through here, right? The south flank is basically still moving and fits and starts, right? It may be that as pressure is filling, the rift area, regardless of how deep that filling is happening, all those theories kind of doesn't matter. It can kind of push the flank a little more, and then once it moves a little more, then it has to kind of refill to repressurize a little more, and then kind of it's got this stop and go kind of nature to it, right? As it builds back up,
And then as it builds back up, we also get these 3.0s to 3.5, 3.6s on the south flank as well, and they're pretty well spaced out in between each event, kind of indicating as well. It tries to become immobile, but then it just builds a little bit and becomes mobile again, or loose in terms of being able to keep adjusting to accommodate magma underneath, or trying to come up from into shallow, basically from depth.
So then we still have our deep hollow earthquakes happening over here, which kind of show that there's still some pressurization happening, within the deeper part of the volcano, kind of extending under the southwest area, especially where it kind of traditionally has done that. So that's also not necessarily new. Kind of it's interesting to see that that's still going on, and it does show that the volcano still has that pressure coming from below, coming up at some point. How long it takes is maybe the biggest unknown. Where it goes and pressurizes first maybe is also something that's open for debate. But basically there is pressure down there still that's going to make it up at some point. If maybe later than sooner, but definitely sometime. So kind of maybe that wraps up the earthquakes. Let me go back to the tilt now, and maybe just let me pop over to the USGS, and I like to look at this month-long comparison of both the summit and the east rift right there. So you can see the little drop that Dane was just discussing right here, right? There's a kind of corresponding flattening of the increase of tilt at Pu'u'o, right? So I mean, it kind of doesn't really believe it's trying to kind of just slowly, it kind of slows down and speeds up and catches up almost.
It's like an echo type of thing.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just barely resonates. But
Yeah, so it's interesting, there's like definitely like a weak connection, right? We've discussed in the past how we for sure had a shallow connection, from the summit to the rift zone that we believe is the one that's been largely damaged, if not destroyed. But we've also discussed possibility of several different depths connections, right? So, it seems like likely there's another slightly deeper connection, maybe at the South Caldera that connects to that slightly deeper part of the rift zone. The rift zone's got some, it's not just like a line through there. It's got a sizable depth to it, right? So you can actually have a path both at shallow and deeper in, and a deeper one could have a kind of that echo effect, perhaps. So maybe there's that kind of connection. It's definitely not a strong connection as it was before because we're missing at least that whole upper system.
Right. The magma, the upper magma chamber as we knew it is basically gone.
Right. That's what we believe in.
Yeah. There's probably some residual amount in there, but when you think about the structure of kind of what happened with the whole collapsing events, you have all these different types of different stages of magma in there, and it's not just a simple ball.
Right.
There's pillars, there's half mold, there's half molten stuff, there's partially dried. And as it comes down and starts compacting, what are you left with after all 62 collapses?
Right.
Well, kind of stuff that's too thick and too viscous to be moved down the rift. So it's not, zero, but
right.
For intensive purposes, for argument, it's basically.
Yeah, I might call it like a mush instead of a magma at this point.
There you go. Yeah,
right? Because
it's a mush.
It doesn't really have the same abilities of magma to, like, let's say, pressurize and erupt like we think of magma lower down in a lower chamber.
Right.
It's a mush, right? And,
yeah.
So maybe it could get pushed out or kind of mobilized at some point, but of itself, it doesn't have that much potential of doing much on its own.
Right. It's not the magma reservoir, the shallow magma reservoir anymore. It's kind of just a wreck in there of all different types of materials that were not able to be squeezed down the rift.
All right, so let me go back to the Hawaii Tracker tilt page here. And we can look at some of these other signals. So kind of, we can see that basically what we're looking at, there's a lot of variations, but it's basically a flat signal, right?
Well, the start of the month is basically the same as the end of the month, and we don't want to look at tilt meters really over prolonged periods of time. You kind of only want to use them in snapshots like that.
Right. We wouldn't want to go. Yeah, it's interesting to kind of compare them over longer times, but it's then you have more questions in front about how meaningful those changes are. But basically, over the last month, we can kind of see, that we've still had, inflationary trends, at several of the stations, right, and deflationary trends at others, right. It doesn't necessarily mean that magma is going in or coming out necessarily, but that the ground is tilting in a direction that's consistent with those patterns, right. But in any case, there's nothing like super large or abrupt. It seems like mostly it's following the same patterns as the last time we talked to you guys, even though it's been several weeks.
Right. Nothing's really been that unusual or stood out in terms of the tilt in the past month.
Right. So yeah, I mean, you have like, that kind of gain in the tilt here, but it's not quite clear what that is and how meaningful it is to have, in this case, 3 microradians over a month time, right?
Yeah.
Especially in what I consider unpressurized system, right? That's kind of a theme that's kind of come across in a lot of our discussions, recently, is that maybe a lot of the paradigms that we were using during the pressurized system model of Puo'o days doesn't always apply here because we don't have that fully pressurized system.
This is the big one that just happened, and now we get to see what post-big one looks like.
Yeah, we're trailblazing here, right? Yeah. We don't exactly know what these signals are going to show because no one's seen these kind of signals in this place, in this situation before.
Right, and the thing to remember is a lot of these, stations, and the way that they're measured, they're recent. They've been a blink of the eye, their existence in terms of geologic time. all these changes happened over thousands of years, but these tilt meters and things have existed for accurately 50, less than that.
Right.
You know, and there's still questions about them, and you know, don't want to trust them too much, type of thing. But they're the best we got for indicating what they indicate.
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, it's probably a matter of like us not always knowing what they're measuring necessarily is a thing to me, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean they're measuring something, but then we have to, you know, figure that out what that is, right? You know,
Right.
when we invented gravimeters that were sensitive enough to detect the pull of mountains, like, you know, half a mile away from you on the surface of the Earth, then we realized, oh look, you know, there's a signal we didn't think we'd see, but this is what's going on, and oh, now there's something we've discovered, right? So,
Right.
I mean, this is the way the discoveries are actually made, right? It's just kind of, you know,
We're working with a small sample size.
being open to the idea that these signals could be various things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe at a time like this, that this is the most potential they have to be something different, you know, in our record. So it's interesting to kind of look at them still, right? You know, I kind of think the whole pattern overall is, you know, we still think the south flank is moving. This is the Mulivio-Pele plot. We've seen this kind of a little wiggle like this before. It almost looks like a little deflation event where it looks like kind of is going further down, and maybe it's more to look at GPS, you know, or this kind of thing. But I'll just kind of scroll through these for you guys to see. There's Pu'o and Jonica. Jonica is especially looking flat.
Yeah, it's flat.
Pu'o is still tilting to the northwest. In this case, it looks like it's about a 5 microradian increase over about a month period in time, which is a little bit slower than before, but still an increasing trend.
Right.
So that's definitely one of the fascinating areas of this discussion. So we'll get into. I'm gonna open all that can of worms some other day, but you know, for now, like there's not much difference in the pattern from the last few.
Yeah, and the thing
few months really.
The thing that's interesting is we've seen some actually pretty noticeable variations on standard trends that have been established since the end of the eruption. We've seen some, in terms of GPS, it's not just, you know, the tilt meters. We've seen some weird things. We've seen some drops in the GPS that were awkward when we saw them.
Right.
Nothing happened. Right. We're talking about very small, nuanced things right now, trying to basically be ahead of the curve. But when something comes, it's going to be noticeable.
Right.
It's not gonna be trying to, you know, spot the head of it. We're gonna see it all coming, and it's gonna be kind of this type of situation again where it builds up and starts over, where we have earthquake swarms, we have tilt changes, and then we get into it. We have the SO2 is gonna be the big thing, though. We're not gonna get an eruption with SO2 as low as it is. That's gonna, when SO2 spikes, okay, you know, magma's coming shallower.
Right.
As of right now, SO2 across Kīlauea and Pu'o and Leilani is some lows that date back to when SO2 measurements began, basically to be accurately taken. So, you know, we're trailblazing there too, basically. Whenever you look at this eruption and where we're at now, we're trailblazing.
Yeah, so yeah, thanks guys for all joining you guys. And let's scroll back here, make sure I don't miss any questions. You know, it's been a while. Oh, Bird asks, where's the mush? The mush is like where the shallow chamber used to be, kind of under in that pit of Hale Mau underneath all that rubble, basically. So it's not really in a place where you can do much except, you know, get more rubble in it and become more mushy.
Yeah, just sit there.
It's like so
cool off a little bit, but probably not much.
Yeah, so let's see. Is Seaview going to drop into the sea?
No.
No. It is still moving towards the sea. It'll keep doing that,
Yeah.
you know, for all of human existence, likely, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there are, like, let's be real, there are instances of the southwest coast of Big Island dropping down as much as 11 feet that I know of in one sudden event.
Right.
It's different in Seaview. Seaview, like, you go down the Seaview cliff, it could drop down 10 feet and that wouldn't change much. Like, it'd still be a little tiny cliff there.
Right.
That's steep there. This isn't Kapoho, where it dropped in and created the tide pools.
Right.
Or helped create the tide pools. That's steep. Seaview's fine for that. That's
yeah. So it's still moving, but we don't see any increased threat. In fact, like I would say that the south flank is kind of maybe spongier. More like an accordion. It can accommodate more
right.
force. It can compress more. It can absorb more of that. So
right.
I'd say that probably as at the moment. I don't know. It's hard to say that gauge these kind of risks, right? But
yeah. I mean, in general, we think of a lot of these things as slow moving and able to move gradually. So, like, it's called like a slump, not because it slides or it falls, or it slowly moves.
Right.
And that's kind of just the general idea of a lot of it is it's able to move to accommodate without creating many of those big events like that.
Right.
Where something drops into the sea. It's possible, but unlikely.
Right. Yeah, and the times when we've had those big earthquakes have been when we have a pressurized system.
Yes.
Right, and that's kind of was my point is that
highly unlikely. Yeah.
We don't have that now, and so while there are likely to be lots of little earthquakes, you don't expect a big one anytime soon.
Yeah.
Because we basically just had it. We got to repressurize to get to that point.
Yep. The biggest one we've had since is I think a 4.1.
Right.
Since
that sounds
6.9 in May.
So okay, let me see if there's any other questions. It's still really trippy to look at you guys all. The camera is still all weird. I just want to take a picture of my camera with your camera. It's really but let's see. I don't see any other questions from that. So all right, so let's kind of keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Let's see. Go back to the bottom. And okay. If I'm having to turn my head sideways, it's because my phone is not in the horizontal manner like you guys have seen it. So that's how I have to read the comments. So let's switch now to the GPS. And on the GPS, we can look at, let's kind of skip these short day ones and go to our year-long plots, right? Which is maybe the more interesting thing. So on this upper plot here of the summit, basically it's the distance north and south across the summit. Here is August, and since the end of the collapse events, which were all this slope all through here, we can kind of see we've actually had a slowly rising slope, right? Which means the distance between the north and south of the caldera is growing.
Right.
Traditionally, we would say that in a pressurized system, this would mean magma is actually pushing up and spreading those walls apart.
Right.
But that's not necessarily what's
now we're
happening
talking
here.
more about south flank.
You can accomplish the same result, absolutely, by moving the south flank and getting those distances farther apart.
Right. So, and that's what, and when you look at the LiDAR during the collapses, the amount of movement on the south flank or the south side of the caldera was considerably more than the north.
Yeah,
the whole
absolutely.
thing is moving on the south side, and it's just dropping crazy and moving, spreading. North, it moved, but not near as much.
Right. And so when we combine this with that earthquake data and the tilt data, especially, that's not showing any increase in tilt, right?
Yeah,
that's what leads us to believe that it's actually the south flank that's moving rather than magma pushing this thing. Because if it was magma, then we'd start to see some inflation, basically. And gas and other signals along those lines.
The gas is really the big tell to me, is that we have just these record lows. I think the last measurement, we have very little reason to think this has changed much, is 30 tons per day at Pu'u'o, 30 tons per day, or 35 tons per day at Pu'u'o, 35 tons per day at the summit. Compare of SO2 per day. Compare that to the eruption in Leilani when it was 50,000 tons per day.
Peak, yeah, absolutely.
That's just to give like a little bit of the scale.
Yeah. And if you want to look at long-term averages, they weren't quite that dramatic. They were still like 4,000 tons a day.
Yeah, especially during Pu'u'o. Pre-Pu'u'o.
Pu'u'o had a lot of that on its own, and then kind of shifted some to the summit. But yeah,
pre-Pu'u'o, that's when you start to see the comparisons to the low amounts of tons per day of SO2 we see, but then that quickly goes into territory when we were unable to take SO2 measurements. So there was only a brief time before Kūlauea existed and SO2 measurements existed. They were able to pull.
Yeah, and the overlap of those times was a time of no eruptions.
Right.
Which is basically the key here. Right?
Yeah, and
that's what we have right now.
Yeah, and that's our point of reference for SO2 being this low is a time of no eruptions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so just kind of tie that together with the summit plot here, and then let's look at the Pu'u'o distance. Across north-south across the rift by Pu'u'o, and here's kind of the pulse of magma that came through. Right. Let's see. Here's the beginning of April, and then after everything kind of goes through and the big collapse and the magma all leaving the area, kind of more steeply at first, more quickly at first, and then kind of slowing down, and then kind of picking up a little bit, and then slowing down. That's kind of we believe that magma is basically not under, not in any shallow part where it can reach the surface. There's not magma degassing, hardly any SO2 there, right? So it's hard to call it exactly empty, but it's practically speaking as empty as it can probably get, right?
And we saw this little nuance occur in October.
Right.
And at the time, it was slightly concerning. We weren't we weren't saying like anything was going to happen, but it was like, oh, look at that. But that's just indicate, something definitely changed in that period of time. But for the majority of people on this island, there wasn't an eruption. So that's just, nothing happened. And for most people, interpreting that. So that just shows we can have these variations. And it, will mean things at an academic level, but for the person that's trying to figure out, if it's safe to go back to their home and stuff like that. Right now, that kind of stuff it's so calm that it doesn't matter to them, and these are just nuances.
Right. Yeah. So basically, what this event, to me at the time, I thought would have been some kind of south flank influence, right? The south flank moving, and then basically it's kind of allowing the rift zone to spread farther apart, right? Once again, not because of magma going in, because of the south flank moving south in a way, very similar to at the summit.
We might see more like that too.
And we very well might. When we look at some previous south flank movements, right? The last big one was in '75, right? And we did have an eruption in 1977 at Pu'ukiai, right above Kalapana, that lasted a few weeks in 1977. So that's where our concern for these kind of short eruptions that can happen, kind of unannounced, with not a whole lot of warning, but also they're not going to be a fisher rate kind of eruption. They might, be a little pad that just burns the forest for a couple hours, or maybe it lasts a week and goes downhill, but it threatens a few houses, but it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, and those are still on the table. Those types of eruptions are completely on the table. Short eruptions that last anywhere from a day to a week or two. Those are possible without intrusions. Those are possible without much warning other than a day, but they're not going to go very far. They're not going to be huge events. They're going to be small eruptions. And that's where we see it right now, or at least I see it right now, is that those are all on the table. But where they're likely at this point, there's much more areas that could happen and affect nothing than it coming and doing it in a spot that's going to be like, oh, it came up just beside 8, or it came up at Fisher 8 again. Those, to me, those are more in different spots, those types of eruptions. That's not a resumption of activity.
Right. So the areas probably that are the most cracked are the ones most likely to be candidates for these eruptions, and those areas that are most cracked are the ones likely moving the most still, right? So there's some kind of correlation there, but basically this is the kind of what I would say is that this is probably the lowest volcanic risk scenario there is, right? Because there's always, when you live in a volcano, as we all do, live on the island, right? There's always some risk, and apart from being on a volcano, that's
it still could claim houses. That's the thing.
Yeah.
There's still houses out there that one of these things could happen, and it's steep enough and it lasts long enough that there's a lava flow, even if it's viscous, can't reach the ocean. It still affects them.
Yeah.
And there's still places that are built that is, they're standing, that's in play.
Yeah. So that's something we can never eliminate. But the thing, the overall pattern is, that's the kind of thing where like the kind of fissure rate eruption, like that's behind us, right?
That was the big one.
That was a big one, for this volcano, we should say, because we think looking forward, we'll turn our attention to Mauna Loa probably in future months and years, right? So, and then that volcano is going to a whole separate system, and it could easily put out a flow of this size, when it goes next. So that's kind of
a lot of the times people would compare fissure rate to a Mauna Loa eruption, and that was a much better comparison than comparing it to anything we've seen in our lifetimes from Kīlauea.
Right.
Mauna Loa was a much better example. Even that wasn't the best example, though. Like now we know, we ended up underestimating things, especially in terms of volume initially, on how much lava was flowing from fissure 8, because we were using models from Mauna Loa. And those models, we were assuming, this is the max it can be, right? Yeah, that's the Mauna Loa flow. That's the max it can be. All right, well, let's use that. And then we come up with numbers, and it'd be like, this doesn't make sense. It's got to be higher than that. That's scary. We just back away right away. It's got to be higher than a Mauna Loa flow. We just back away. You have to make some assumptions that are, scary at the time.
Right.
Now we look at it, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. That kind of makes sense. But at the time, it was just the volume that was coming out was so mind-blowing. Yeah. But basically, the reason why I'm saying that is that just shows how behind us that part is. That all of that drained. The entire shallow reservoir, as much as it could be drained, has drained.
Yeah.
It's incredible in and of itself, that whole thing happened. But you can't recreate that without time.
Yeah,
you can't run that gauntlet again.
Yeah, it's going to take time to recharge this system, right? So we can have this kind of minor leaking out here and there, but to have the full-on big thing, it's going to take some time to recharge it.
Yep.
The sequence that I would expect would be recharging at the summit,
right?
Recharging the upper East Rift, and after 75, there was a period of I think it took to 83 to actually erupt out of Pu'o past the 77 Pu'ukiai flow.
Right.
But there were 4 intrusions into Upper East Rift, so it didn't actually erupt. And there were another couple of intrusions around the Pu'ukiai time that also didn't erupt. So magma was definitely moving back through there, and that's something we could tell, even without eruptions. So that's the pattern. We'll see that again.
Yeah.
Right. And why does it intrude without it actually erupting? Because there's not enough just pressure, right? There's so much space in there. It can still get through there and fill all the space that we still have now.
Right.
And that's continuing to be created as that south flank is moving, even if magma that's in there, that's down, deeper down, is kind of acting as a wedge and kind of wedging that thing over. There's all these different mechanisms for keeping that thing moving until it gets stuck and can pressurize, and then we can actually have a sustained long eruption.
Yeah.
A la Pu'o or even fissure rates.
Then a whole bunch of different things come onto the table. We've heard, and I don't want to go into it too much, but we've heard from USGS that explosive eruptions at Kīlauea is not outside. It's kind of the norm. It's an explosive volcano, as Don Swanson said. It just hasn't been lately. Right. So when we go back and we start talking about, we just had the big one, now what? We can't remove the explosive eruptions from the table at the summit.
No.
The thing we can say is that's going to take time.
Yes.
That's not something that just happens, you flip a switch and wait a few days and then boom. That's a process that looks like it's going to take a while. And all of this is new theories coming out on that type of interactions, because up until recently, we were under the impression, at least officially on paper, that this interaction happened a lot faster than now. After this event, the common accepted line is, and that's no, that doesn't happen immediately. We thought it did.
Right.
So we can't, just because that doesn't happen immediately, And now we're talking about, we're looking at months to years to multiple years of inactivity. We don't know when those explosive eruptions become officially possible.
Yeah,
and it could be a really long time until those things come on the table.
Right.
But it could be less. It could be a decade. It could be 5 years. It could be less. It could be more.
Right.
The idea is that explosive eruptions are on the table, and the ballpark for them is pretty huge as to when they're possible.
Yeah, we just don't know very much, right? Because we don't have much data from the older, especially
right.
like 1790. Right?
I'm sure there's going to be some PhD students out there that are just going to, get their doctorate off of this thing.
Oh, many.
But as of right now, it's pretty gray. That's going to be trailblazing for years in terms of academia research and publishing papers and refining and scrutiny. It's going to take a while to get there, but the idea is that as of right now, it's on the table, and it's a large range that it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mentioned 1790 because the biggest explosions that we know of are 1790. We presume there probably were some in 1500 as well, given like some of the explosive debris around the rim of the caldera edge, right?
Right,
some of those blocks, that kind of thing. So, but so the thing is, none of that is in the modern science era, right? So even 1790, there was the first missionary came here in 1823, right? So it was only Hawaiians still.
And even in if you talk about 1955, there's still giant asterisks I put on the official report just because I read the way in which some of the data was collected, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, I understand you're having to work with the times, but ouch, that's not an easy way to collect data, and you have to increase your margin of error just by doing it that way. And that's just, the old school, and it improved back, they learned from it, they didn't just this didn't work the way we wanted to, let's just, they learned from it, so the next time, an eruption happened, okay, now they have the documentation, now they've improved the tilt meters, now things are on the table that weren't on the table before.
Right. And there's something that just like, if you're not measuring it in real time or watching it in real time and recording it in that way, then you're just never going to know, right? Like, because if someone didn't say, this is how many months it was since the collapse to an explosion, or happened at the same time, or happened before or after, then it's usually beyond the resolution of geology, right? Sometimes you can get, be really ingenious, like Don, say like, I see that this ash fell down wet, so it had to have come, when this explosion went. They can kind of quantify those things. People walked on it, and you can kind of in a way get lucky in that way, but it's not an easy thing to do. So
Don Swanson is a legend though. So
he's pioneered all kinds of different.
He's just a legend.
Right. And if you guys didn't catch, John had a chance to talk to Don, and posted some comments in the video about that. And Don, as he relays it, said it could be a couple of decades potentially, right? At least that's within the range, without excluding any of those kind of earlier.
Yeah, the outside chances that are still there. Yeah, and it's consistent with a lot of the data that we see.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to mention, because I had mentioned 75, and 75 there was not a caldera collapse, right?
No.
And in that case, it took, basically a couple years for it to cause a small eruption, in the vicinity of Pu'u'o. And then it took another 5 years beyond that to actually erupt at Pu'u'o. Turn into Pu'u'o,
run that Fisher line all the way down and work its way back down and up and down and up.
And that was with no caldera collapse and with a shallow system intact the entire way. Right. So
different now is basically the idea.
I would have to call that a lower bounds, right? Like it has to be at least that long, considering we have had more damage and we don't have a shallow system and we have more area to recharge than in 75. It should take longer than that, right? And so not to say that those little ones won't pop off in between as it's adjusting its way through, including intrusions and when intrusions happen, I'm sure that we're gonna be here with you guys, and it's gonna be a scary. Gonna be like, here's a bunch of earthquakes, and here's a bunch of tilt, and a bunch of gas, and lava is not out of the ground. So great.
I mean, there's so many variations in that. You can have earthquakes at the summit deformation, seemingly collapses up there, huge crater forming, intrusions, earthquake swarms, and no eruption.
Yeah, like 1924.
Yeah, that just the stage is set But it doesn't go vertical and come up into the the surface. So there's a bunch of cracks in the ground. Roads get messed up. Driveways are gonna get messed up. Stuff like that. Some foundations would get screwed. In that type of scenario, no eruption. Yeah. That just shows the range of possibilities.
Yeah. So, kind of coming back to the explosions at the summit, it could easily be years. It could easily be decades potentially, because we don't know, right?
Exactly.
But it's interesting because 1790 is the last one. The 1 in 24 doesn't really fit our patterns as we understood them now, and we thought we did
a year ago, as we understood them a year ago. It doesn't. All that's had to change basically, just because now we understand. Wow, how we looked at 1924, the explosions there wasn't accurate. Now it's been refined. That's just how science works, though. And until you get something to compare against, you kind of just got to take the word of something. And once you get some data, then you scrutinize the hell out of it. But until you have that, it's just it exists as a standalone, and it's hard to question the standalone.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's 24 was all we had to work with, that one happened at basically the same time as the intrusion, and we're past that, so we know that's not what we're dealing with here.
Right.
So that's not what we look at for comparison. So therefore, we have no data, since there's a lot of data in the Hawaiian sense, in the Hawaiian stories, there's a lot of information there, but when we discount that at all. What I'm talking about is the kind of data that we can compare what we're looking at now, right? Because we can see that these things do happen for sure.
Yeah.
Right, but we can't get the chance don't often relate how many months, how many hours, how many earthquakes per day, or that kind of thing. Not in a way that we can compare it to today. It can be it was enough to cause this or that to happen, or
we can get the general sense of
reacted
things.
This way. This is how we felt, but we can't
get
the numbers of exactly how that translates.
Yeah.
We can't exclude that, but we don't think it's going to be anytime soon because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be, to me, on the higher end of time. That's not when we're looking at timelines, and yes, the realm of possibility is a giant unknown, but if we're going to place a likelihood and odds on things, we go to a little bit on the higher end on the explosive eruptions, and we do the lower end.
Right, and to kind of just issue one more example and kind of counter to that point. After the 24 eruption and those 9 eruptions over 10 years that refilled the lowest part of the pit of the caldera until 34, right?
Yeah.
Then we had 18 years of no magma erupting. Yeah. And when we actually had eruptions renewed.
Those little the little pop-ups where it's similar to almost when 8 popped up that time. It just comes up to the surface, pushes up a little bit. Okay, bye. Yeah, until next time.
Yeah, clearly magma was still pretty shallow.
Still is there,
right. But so in that case, depending on how the magma is able to come in, maybe if it comes in a kind of a little finger at a time here, a little finger at a time there, maybe it's not going to actually explode either, right? Maybe you actually get away with a bunch of steaming and no explosion. We just don't know that, right? We know that in the 50s when it came back in full force, there was no explosion.
Exactly.
In that way, right? So that's something we just kind of, once again, we're trailblazing.
We know that, we're trailblazing on that explosive thing. We thought the conventional thinking on it got scrapped pretty quick, once this thing got thrown and it started happening. We had some... See, the thing about this eruption is I'll just say it's the most monitored eruption, and especially in terms of caldera collapse, it's the most monitored caldera collapse we've ever seen in human history. There hasn't been a caldera collapse that we've actually been able to have this kind of instrumentation spread across so many different points, this many cameras set up. I mean, there's so many videos and images out there, including all the web cameras that are stored. Has to be 1 million+ images of this eruption alone.
And there have been other caldera collapses, right, even in the modern era. But the thing is, Kīlauea has, for a long time, been the world's most instrumented volcano because it's been in continuous eruption since 1980.
Right.
And that has made it a proving ground, a testing ground, a developing ground.
And now we just had one happen in real time, basically.
Exactly. So we just happen to have this instrumentation. I mean, the volcano was instrumented already because of this, watching the actual effusion of lava after the eruption. I mean, then we happen to catch this as well. So you're absolutely right. I think,
we've seen caldera collapses in the world in modern history. There was one in 2014 in Iceland. However, it was under a glacier. that kind of hampers monitoring in the middle of nowhere, like nowhere. So yeah, the monitoring, that's a lot harder. You don't have any instrumentation deployed already. Yeah. It's under a glacier, so you can't even see the thing. Yeah. You just can measure some. You have some measurements, but yeah, it's a lot harder. So there's been them, but not like this. Not where it's in real time. Not where you have so many instruments deployed along so many different points. Usually it's just snapshots type of thing, where you get the idea and later observation. This was real time for the entirety of it too.
Right.
So that's the difference, like, and why, you know, like, a lot of this stuff is going to become more known going forward. So we haven't had this happen in this type of monitoring situation. So a lot of these theories and ideas that we're talking about now, maybe they look goofy come 10 years. Because, you know, we throw some machine learning on the data sets that we have acquired, and we come up with some explanations and nuances that wouldn't be, you know, thought of in normal conversation or deducted. You know, their correlations had just only machine learning would be able to put on the table, and that kind of data mining. But we're not there. You know, we just saw it. So, you know, we're still trying to adjust. We're gonna learn a lot about Kīlauea come a few years via this data that's been acquired during this eruption. I guarantee you.
For sure. Yeah, this is monumental. Let me see here if I can scroll back for some questions, and we can maybe wrap this up once we address those. Let me let's see. I'm sorry, I gotta turn my head sideways. I'm not sure if I look funny. Let's see. Is it safe to say us Leilani residents can rest easy without worry of another occurrence?
For how long?
Yeah, I suppose that's the real question, right? You know, for now, I'd say for now, yes, yeah. But yeah, at some point, you know, there are different ideas, you know, of what will happen next. These kind of small scale eruptions are definitely within the range of possibility, you know, even here, you know, but it's not what we expect. It would kind of, you know, in my mind, this has been over for a while now, so this is as quiet as it gets. So
yeah, this is what over looks like.
Yeah, I was kind of you know, reflecting on this, and maybe I should run this by someone first before I start telling everybody about this. Some analogy I started thinking of, but you know, I start off by saying I don't know much about surfing, right? But I do know that at every point the wave ends. Right, so like you don't get on a board to, like, you know, go indefinitely. You get on the wave knowing that it's like gonna be a good ride, and at some point you gotta paddle off and go get another wave, right? And I thought maybe in the way like living on Kīlauea is something like this, right? We know there's gonna be eruption at some point, the wave's gonna end, right? But that time in between, the ride that we go for in between those eruptions, right? That's like why we do it, right? You know, like the living in between, yeah, you know, and it could be a super long wave. It could, you know, maybe it would go for 50 years again, you know, like, or it might be a short one, you know, but in either case, we're still riding the wave, right? You know, and like
all kinds of variations in waves. I know there's a wave in China that goes for like miles. At certain times of the year in a certain river, there's a wave that just breaks for like a mile.
Right. Yeah, then there's guys who like surf the wakes of tankers. I mean, but okay.
But I'm talking about like naturally. You can get some crazy long durations on these things.
Yeah, I've heard.
But there's still ebbs and flows.
Yeah, I've heard Kīlauea before the break wall. It was a nice long ride. But in any case, yeah, maybe you guys get kind of where I'm coming from, right? We know living in a volcano, you know, whether it's in, you know, Lower Puna, Upper Puna, and Volcano, you know, and Hilo, you know, whether we're on the flanks of Kīlauea or flanks of Mauna Loa, you know, wherever we are, like, you know, everywhere, especially, you know, if it's not Mauna Kea, you know, or Kohala, you know, is likely to have an eruption at some point, right? And we may live to see it, we may not live to see it in some of those areas, you know, but basically we're all on the volcanic ride together on this, right? So like, you know, there are going to be certain areas that get hit more, you know, intensely than others, like what we just saw happened here in Lower Puna, but that's like the eruption of a century, the eruption of a couple of centuries kind of thing, you know, like
that's the big one.
The normal eruptions are kind of this, you know, the smaller version, you know, like the few weeks, like, you know, like Pu'ukiai, you know, I mean, even Pu'o was kind of a longer, you know, and
Drawn out, yeah.
it's like the stage that needs to be set for something like this to happen, right? Is like you have to have a, you know, in my mind, when you have a long sustained rift zone eruption, it's showing signs of a pressurized system that can then lead to this kind of massive collapse, failure, south flank movement, etc. Right. So where am I going with that?
Yeah, I think we basically covered it though.
But yeah, so in any case, like, you know, so I'd say to answer the question, we are, you know, I'd say you're safe in Leilani for now, right? You know, it looks like this is a good time to, you know, to be going for the ride again, you know, for those of us that want to get on this kind of ride. Right. You know, living in a volcano, there's people who don't, and that's totally fine, right? You gotta just recognize that in yourself, and in that case, you know, what do we say, Dane? Waimea? Waimea is a good place.
Waimea is, you had very little concerns in Waimea.
Volcanically.
Yeah.
Other concerns, of course, but...
yeah. Javi, you're good.
right.
So stand the wind.
So yeah, I mean that's kind of a longer drawn out answer, but I'm sure that's one that everyone's kind of paying attention to, because that's what everyone wants to know is like, well, what should I do, right?
Where are we? Can I move
what kind
back?
of advice can you give for what I should do? And it's impossible to predict these things. You know, these kind of small eruptions can pop up anywhere, but right now looks like the best time to be taking action in my mind.
Yep.
You know, so that's my answer to that. So let me crane my head to read the comments again here. Sorry, you guys. Let's see. Will restoring roads make Fissure 8 reactivate?
No.
Just for the record, no, absolutely not. That's basically this. We're like.
You can say that with confidence. No.
Yeah, 100% confidence. Yeah. It's kind of we're kind of scraping the surface. We're like and not even dealing with the plumbing. That's really the cause of all this. So yeah, there's nothing to do with it.
Man's impact on what the internal plumbing system of the volcano is pretty laughable. Like we don't have that kind of influence. We can't make it erupt. We can't make it not erupt. That's just not in our power.
Yeah. If it's right on the edge of going, then maybe we can push it over the edge. But yeah, it's hard to actually get it to go from scratch.
Yeah.
It'll be hard to time it that way also, right? You're one of those Hollywood blockbusters where you.
Yeah, well, this isn't the core. This isn't the
exactly.
core. We're not drilling.
So okay, let me see what other questions we got. Oops, sorry, I can't even rotate the phone to read. I have to rotate my head, otherwise it'll yell at me. All right, so let's see. Let's scroll down. Thanks, guys, for joining and watching. Got a lot of guys joining us today, so we're glad to still be here. Let's see.
Why is your head tilted?
Yeah, that's the real question today. That's the biggest mystery of the day. I look great sideways. Okay, thank you. So we were big wave riders. Yes, that was a good way to put it. Yeah, we rode the biggest wave there is right there.
Yeah, that's true. That's cool.
So has Pu'o and Kīlauea completely stopped its 35-year eruption for now? My answer is yes.
Yes, by any reasonable...
By almost every definition.
Every measurement.
We haven't quite got to every definition, but to almost every definition.
Yeah.
We're almost, you give it a few more months. And
every reasonable definition, I would say.
So, okay, let's see. Oh. Is an eruption at the summit still possible? Yes, eruption at the summit is definitely possible, and I think that's probably the most likely place that it shows the signs of repressurizing the shallow system is there first, in my mind.
Yep.
Of course, there are other models, right? So we can.
But I mean, and the thing about the summit is it can just ooze out the bottom. It can ooze out a crack, not really erupt. Just little lava comes out. And that's it.
Well, and even if you have a 2,000-foot fountain, from the summit, it's still going to be totally inside of that giant hole in the ground.
Inside the park with the buffer area.
Yeah.
Winds are going to push the fallout to Ka'u, which is in that area is going to be uninhabited, in the immediately impacted area.
Right.
Farther downwind, we'll get impacted in that kind of a situation, which is possible, but, there will be signals that that's going to be happening, especially 2,000-foot fountains and that kind of thing. It's not just going to in the middle of the night, what's going on? No,
right. No, totally. Yeah. So, in 1790 there certainly were, some it seems like the sequence, like given a lack of oral history, like going back to once again Don Swanson and his whole chronology of that particular eruption, maybe the explosions came first and then the fountains came afterwards, and some of those fountains actually sprayed pumice just over the edge of the crater wall, but most of it stayed within the caldera. So, that's once again one of those only data points that we have. It might go that way, it might go some other way. We just don't know how it's going to go necessarily.
Right.
It is interrupted the summit again, I guarantee it. When, that's what no one knows, and how is also somewhat up in the air.
Yeah.
And maybe a key point, not anytime very soon.
Yeah.
So let's see. All right. Laughing through the comments. Wasn't St. Helens fairly well documented? St. Helens was pretty well documented.
It was not a caldera collapse for one.
It was not. It's because it's very different, right? And it's set up, right? It was a kind of flank collapse, the whole.
Yeah.
And
it's a different process entirely.
And in fact, when that, maybe some other day we can talk about this in more detail. But once again, Don Swanson was involved in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But they actually were recognize a different manner of eruption, by the flank of the mountain exploding and causing a lateral blast, right? As opposed to an upward blast, which had been what was predicted, what all evacuation plans have been based around. Look at them; they're all like in bullseyes around the mountain, right? Which is what you expect from that thing blasts up.
Yeah.
And that's a great default.
Yeah.
Way to think of it.
They were right in that assumption at the time.
But then when you see, when they saw that bulge in the north wall, right, and at one point was moving as much as a meter a day.
Yeah, then.
Now, and then we're like, well, then seeing what happened afterwards, now we know when we see that kind of signal, we expect a directed blast.
Hindsight is so easy. Like, that's the thing. Like, especially with this eruption, like, hindsight, looking back at certain things, like, it was obvious on certain things, but we didn't know because there was no point of reference to have.
Right.
Now, you couldn't pick a sample size of people more trained on Kīlauea, an east rift eruption than those people in Puna.
Right.
They've lived through it at this point. So, if something were to happen again, these are the people that are most apt to be able to deal with it in bulk.
Right.
As a sample size of a population, basically. But yeah.
Yeah, so St. Helens was interesting. Yeah, I mean,
different though.
Yeah, definitely. Different. Yeah. If anyone really wants to get into the details of all that, there's a book that I recommend. It's called Volcano Cowboys.
Oh yeah.
It talks about the triumvirate of the volcano cowboys, of which one is Don Swanson. Working at the Cascades Volcano Observatory in support of the St. Helens eruption, and that entire sequence is fascinating read. It's been a long time, right? We probably need a Kīlauea sequel now,
Yeah.
whole new thing, right? But in any case, like if you're interested in digging more into the St. Helens eruption, I thought that was fascinating read years and years ago, kind of.
Right.
Probably be fascinating to reread now after what happened this past year, right?
Different perspective you come into.
New
with
perspective
different
we
eyes.
have, yeah, for sure.
Different eyes.
So yeah, St. Helens is definitely interesting. So Pele is on her way home. It's just a matter of time. Yes, exactly. Too bad the eruption didn't wipe out the Koki frogs.
Oh, those Koki frogs, they don't care.
Yeah.
Same with the Albesias. They're just like, yeah, whatever, this is fine.
Fire ants.
We're like, yeah, this is great, I love it. Oh my god.
Yeah, fire ants are unfortunately thriving.
Mosquitoes are apparently a huge thing right now.
Right.
Getting mauled by them.
Okay, so let's see. So Volcano Village would not get covered by, I'm not sure exactly what an eruption at the summit. Oh yeah, so no, Volcano Village is not likely to get covered by an eruption at the summit. No. Volcano Village, is likely to have ash at some point. Basically, maybe some tephra, but that would be kind of long term.
Prevailing winds favor Volcano Village over the west side of the caldera.
Yeah, most of that stuff in the past goes to the Kīlauea Desert, right? Not to say you won't get some in Volcano Village, but
we saw that this time with our 30,000 foot ash clouds that were pretty, they were not dense in any way, shape, or form, but we did see that they love to favor Ka'u in terms of where they went, and they got different wind patterns at different height levels, going up into the atmosphere, but in general, the fallout, vast majority of the fallout, south and west, it went.
Yeah. And though these, as far as we can tell, these past explosion events have been actually fairly short-term things, right? I want to say 1790 might have been 3 days. 24 was a little bit longer, but it was kind of a different thing now that we discussed that already, right? So,
What are you talking 3 days this time?
It's 1790, I want to say.
No,
wait.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. No, it's not. Where did I get that from? I must be thinking of something else. In any case, these are not. It's not like it's going to be 3 months of explosions. We don't expect, right? Because there's a limited supply, right? Basically, the mechanism for explosions, as we believe it, combination of gas building the magma and vaporizing the water table to steam, right? So, if you vaporize the water to steam, then there's no more water.
Yeah.
You can only do that so much, and then once you get out enough ash, then you kind of switch to your fountains, and then you kind of pass that.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the answer for that. So let's see. My app for Android is almost ready. I'm sorry, you guys. I had
soon TM.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been promising for a long time already, but I had a bunch of family leaving town. I've made some progress, and so I hope it'll be sooner than later still. But I will get to that. How are things at Pohuiki? Pohuiki seems. I was down there, over kind of the Christmas break. It was pretty busy. It was interesting. The road still steams, right? There's a lot of people, right? A lot of traffic. It's interesting how much it's changed. One thing I haven't heard anyone else really mention very much, maybe because I haven't looked very hard, but I was always really into sedimentology as well, right? And it's interesting to me to kind of look at the patterns that the building sand has accumulated on a beach left behind. Normally, in a well-established old beach, you kind of have that slope that kind of comes in from the water. It can be steeper or more shallow, but then you kind of have that berm, right? Kind of the high wave line, kind of thing. And often there's a bigger one behind there, for the storm, a storm version of that, right? But when you look at the beach at Pohuiki, you actually see that pattern of a slope rising up and then a berm 3 times. Right, so I know we had a lot of hurricanes that were depositing those things. It's hard to I don't know exactly which one it was, But it seems like there's actually been a net gain of sand over time. Each one's bringing more and more sand. So actually, it might have actually the first one farther inland might have been the first wave or storm, and then more stuff gathers, and you have the second storm imprint, and more stuff's gathering, and you have regular wave actions. Right. So I thought that was fascinating, right? Because actually, it's pretty far.
And then now we're dealing with a high surf advisory in the last night that ended this morning for north and east facing shores, so it probably all changed again.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that's. Yeah.
The one thing that we do know about the sand out there is there's a finite supply. That it's done creating sand there. That there is a large shelf out there that drops off steeply outside the whole entire coastline. Once it gets off that shelf, it's unlikely to make it back up in any considerable percentage. And so areas that have sand and have decent deposits of sand, they might last for a few months, they might last the whole winter, they might last next winter, they might last a few years, they might last 10 years, we don't know.
Yeah.
The sand at Kaimu goes in and out pretty regularly, cycles around, comes back, disappears. Seems to be in a little less than it used to be, but it's no quantifiable measurements on that kind of thing.
Yeah, so the amount of
it fluctuates is the idea. It fluctuates in and out, and it can lose sand. And in a lot of these areas, especially like McKenzie, that sand can go away and never come back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what I just wanted to say is that we're not creating any more sand. There actually might still be a huge supply of it up towards Kapoho.
There could be. Yeah.
The supply is limited, absolutely, right? And and kind of the overall long-term pattern is the current goes from Kapoho to South Point, right? So over time, any sand anywhere along there kind of just keeps getting moved all the time, right? So it could be then areas where you don't have sand in Kapoho, right? Then you start losing sand at Kaimu, long-term, even beyond what you described as the onshore seasonal, more sand in the summer and less in the winter, which happens at every beach in the world, everywhere pretty much, to some degree, But on top of that, I'm losing because of this kind of longshore current taking it farther away, right? So at some point, that whole mass of sand is going to move through, and it's going to move, you know, through Mackenzie. At some point, it's going to leave Mackenzie possibly too, but it might actually at some point reach Punaluu, right?
Right.
But it might take a long time to get there, you know, kind of thing.
And it's just going to keep changing. That's the thing about it. Is if you're familiar with Kaimu at all, that sand is always different down there. It can be, you know, a full black sand beach with barely a rock on it, to you go down there and it's just a 8-foot cliff straight down vertical into just rock with no sand and everything in between. Yeah.
So we have a lot more sand to move around, so maybe even more variation all along the coastline. Interesting, yeah. So it's fascinating. Anything else about Poiki, people-wise? You know, I had heard, you know, it doesn't look like they got created a place to swim. Some people were kind of, you know, a little bit, but I've also heard that there were some rescues there a bunch in some short times. And maybe it's tourists.
I think it's pretty much a combination of the coastlines around, especially the east side of the island, are pretty sketch in terms of the amount of exposure you get to the ocean.
Right.
Like, very few people paddle out at Kaimu. Hey, you know, it's not that good a wave now. It used to be a much better wave. But it's also just crazy exposed to riptides, to variants. It's not a kid-friendly beach in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Now Poiki's a lot less sheltered than it used to be. It's more raw. It's not Kaimu, but it's Kaimu-esque almost. It has those. It's raw, the power, and it's more raw than I think people are kind of ready for. The majority of the time, it's fine. You know, the vast majority of people go down there, no issue. If some kids swimming in it, no problems. But every once in a while, somebody just, you know, goes in complacent.
Right.
And that's the one thing you can't be down there, is you have to be at least somewhat aware.
Right.
And it is, you know, the powerful ocean. It's not the sheltered ocean. It's not the old Poiki.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I didn't get like, you know, any kind of bad vibe or anything there. It was definitely was crowded, you know. Like I don't think that everyone was as happy with the fact that it was as crowded as it was. But it didn't seem like anyone was being disrespectful while I was there, and it seems like everything was pretty cool. I mean, I don't know. I was only there for one moment in time, but so rely on you guys to report anything different if you know what's going on over there. But it seems like it's, you know, going pretty good in Poiki. I'd say the bathrooms are pretty bad, but as we expected,
It's crowded.
Yeah. So let's see. Any more questions here? Let's see. How do we sleep at night, not knowing about what's next? Where would you build a house on this island? Well, it depends whether you're willing to get on that volcanic wave or not, right? You know, so if you're not, and lava's your main concern, then, you know, what do we say, Waimea?
Yeah, Waimea's fine. Property price is pretty high, but the thing about it is you have to look at everything outside of just like lava, right? Your risk really on the island it isn't just lava, and it's not just this island. You have hurricane risk, you have tsunami risk, you have there's places that have lost, you know, to landslides. There's, you know, or there's. This isn't compartmentalized to just the island, right? There's risks in California. There's risks in China. There's risks wherever you go. So it's just, what are your risks? Weigh them across the board.
Find the ones that you're comfortable with.
Right. Some things you'll be more comfortable with than others, but still look at them, you know, weighed evenly. Where, lava, it's spectacular visually. But statistically, what's your risk? Basically, is where it comes down to.
Yeah, we've always called it like the sexy hazard, right? Like,
it's
very, you know, stunning, but like it doesn't really affect that many people when it comes down to it. You know, the earthquakes are the one that affect most people, right? It's going to shake
huge
most houses.
Possible. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so I mean, and you know, paradoxically, the areas that have more magma nearby shake less with those big earthquakes. You know, so you actually can have some kind of buffer against those big, you know, that big energy. So areas like Waimea, you know, if you guys remember, like the 6.7 earthquake in, was it 2006?
2005, 2006.
Yeah, that'll, you know, more damage in areas that were had the more solid ground, right? All was bridges.
And you can still get the big earthquakes up there.
Yeah. So, let's see here. What else we got going on here? So thank you guys all who are joining us. Well, we're back to the question. Let's see about the cloud was coming out of Pu'o. Yeah, we believe it was basically just steam. Reports were that it actually might have been Hale Mau Mau. I didn't go check myself, but it seemed like the reports that I saw seemed to favor Hale Mau Mau. And with really cold nights and mornings there, and clear skies, like steam cloud has been building and been visible from a long way away.
Yeah, this little steam cloud that like builds on top of Hale Mau Mau, and it just kind of anchors there, and it's been seen many a time. It just ranges in how big it is and how visually you're able to see it, because a lot of the times, like, they'll be there, but there's also heavy cloud cover, so there's not much contrast there. It kind of doesn't stand out. You have the blue sky, the perfect conditions for steam to be able to be seen.
Right.
Okay, now it stands out and looks, dramatic. And we've seen a few times where this has been like, oh wow, look at the summit, look at Pu'o, look at Leilani. This is steam. It's weird how much it varies.
Yeah, and especially the upper level wind, right? Because the upper level wind, if it's not there, that allows that thing to kind of build big enough where you can kind of see it from all over the place and start wondering what is going on over there, right?
Yeah.
I think I related to you earlier, but I don't think I said it in the broadcast yet. But a few days before that, I saw what looked like the white wall. Right, we actually had a similar situation, but we actually had a very strong upper level wind, right? So that we had the plume coming up, and then it kind of just got topped, and it kind of all blew sideways. So that instead of being kind of up like that, it was kind of against the ground in a way that looked like a giant white wall. So that was fascinating. My dad pointed out that reference to me as we were going up. So that's it can look all different ways. Those people who kind of live in and around volcano kind of know all the different faces and shapes that cloud can be.
Yeah.
So, all right. Is there anything else you guys got? Any questions to add? You can add them on here. If not, you can type them out later, and we'll try to get to them later on. Let's see here. One more question. Whose house are we streaming from?
My house.
This is
my house.
Dane's house, we're here in Leilani.
We're like one street from Fisher 8. It's fine.
Yeah. The biggest problem is actually the mosquitoes, in fact.
Right now, the mosquitoes suck right now.
Well, I'm not sure, that we'll do these like twice a week like we did before, but as we we definitely have more stuff to talk about. As we said, we're not in any huge hurry to do that because, there's several other projects we're trying to catch up on and going on, right? I heard guys already mention that you want me to finish that Android app, so I need to get to that. And we will definitely have more things to discuss. It is Volcano Awareness Month, and unfortunately, many of the talks so far have been canceled.
Right, that's one thing.
They will be rescheduled at some point, but as those happen, I'm pretty sure the paper today said that the ones at the end of the month were confirmed. The ones like the Hazlitt's,
the Lyman Museum.
The Lyman Museum, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, if we'll probably get to that before that, but definitely when those things start happening, then we'll have a reason to kind of come to you guys probably more often and kind of talk about that information and kind of go through that. We can maybe get more regular at that point. But until then, there's really not a whole lot happening. We can kind of go off down a lot of these tangents. Of what may be happening and we all kind of what we believe is happening or what we believe is going to happen or how long it might take.
Yeah, and it's not even theory; it's hypothesis at this point. Like we're trailblazing on a lot of these things. And it's not like the volcanologists aren't saying it. Obviously, Don will say it, and other volcanologists will say it. But we're blazing that trail, and in academia and the professional writing level, it's a slower process than just you're able to show something.
All right, let me see something here. Let me get adventurous here and see. I think I've seen. Oh no, I thought I saw that John had logged in here, and I was gonna see if I could find him on here, but I don't see him on here right now. Maybe this is a operator issue, so forgive me, guys, but well, I was gonna try to get John on here, but maybe he wasn't able to anyways. But yeah, you guys can check out the information that John posted about his talk with Don, and hopefully we will have a chance to do an update with him at some point.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Sooner than later, so we can kind of hear him tell us all that and have some banter perhaps about that.
Yeah.
That whole theory. Maybe that's a better time where we have more diverse points of view than just.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we'll see how that works out, right? When everyone's kind of trying to catch back up on that stuff, and we're all in a new year, and trying to figure out our like what's our most immediate next move and which ball to catch next, right? So
yeah.
All right, guys. From Leilani, myself,
Right.
and Dane. Yeah, thanks for joining us for the update. We will catch you guys as soon as we're able. We're not gonna be in a huge hurry, but we'll let you guys know when we have more info to share and when it's we're back down here.
Yep.
Maybe we can do something from the field, even if we can get a good enough signal somewhere. That's the whole issue down here, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Getting out is kind of hard sometimes.
Right. Perhaps one from the park sometime. Maybe I can get you up to the park at some point once again, and we can do something there. But in any case, you guys, thanks for joining us down here from Leilani. Will on behalf of Ikaika,
Yep.
sign off with our typical "Stay classy, Puna." Aloha.